अस्सलाम वालेकुम नाज़रीन, सिंध टेलीविजन न्यूज़ जे पारां मां आहियां मुंहिंजो मेज़बान फ़याज़ नायज। हिन वक़्तु असां मौजूदु आहियूं अमरीकी रियासत कैलिफोर्निया जे शहर सांता मोनिका में, जिते सांता मोनिका शहर जो सिटी मैनेजर रिकोल साहब असां गॾु अचूं था, उन सां गुफ़्तगू कयूं त अमरीका जे अंदरि ख़ासि तरह ते आम तरह ते ऐं ख़ासि तरह सांता मोनिका जे अंदरि जेको लोकल गवर्नमेंट सिस्टम आहे उहो कीअं थो ऑपरेट करे। वेलकम मिस्टर कोल फॉर माई शो एंड फॉर योर टाइम। आई एम रियली ग्रेटफुल टू यू. First of all, I want to know what is the role of a city manager?
Traditionally, the role of a city manager is a classic civil servant, an administrator over the services that the local government provides. But like many things in America, that's evolving. And so more and more, the city manager is the chief executive officer. So part of my role is also to be strategic and to lead innovation and to be focused less on the services we provide than the benefits we are giving to the community. So what we call outcomes. It's not just having a police department, but lowering crime and making people feel safer. It's not just having a library, but actually promoting lifelong learning for our young people and our adults.
So you were talking before this starting on the camera, you were talking about the difference of the Californian local government system vis-a-vis towards the New York or the Texas. What is the difference?
In California, because we're newer than the states back east, there's more of an emphasis on professional management of government. When democracy began in America, elected officials were also the administrators. That has some advantages in terms of responsiveness to the community and to the voters, but it has some disadvantages in that it's much more likely to lead to corruption. So in California, we have a very rigid structure that separates politics from administration, and I'm on the administrative side. I'm one of the few who was formerly an elected official, so I have some understanding of both sides, the folks who report to the voters and are quite responsive, and those of us who have the responsibility of administering a professional service organization and delivering benefits to the community.
One difference I have come across to understand that the big cities like New York, Houston or Los Angeles, they don't have the city managers.
That's correct.
Why this? Is there any reason to manage? But I was thinking that the big cities need more professional guys to organize or the big those cities. But here is totally different.
You're exactly right, and a perceptive insight. My last job before returning to professional administration at the smaller level was to be the deputy mayor in the city of Los Angeles, as you know, our second biggest city. So I was asked by the mayor to come in because of the lack of professional management in big cities. I think big cities are recognizing the need you've identified. And for example, I almost always can win a bet among even very informed people in America by asking them which city is in the best financial shape of all of the big cities, and no one ever guesses right. It's our capital city, Washington, D.C., and that's because our federal Congress installed a professional chief financial officer to safeguard the finances because they had gone almost bankrupt. And so by putting professional management in, they were able to stabilize their finances, and now they're in the best shape of any of the big cities. So there's a need for greater professional administration in the big cities, but tradition is that they're very political.
Does local government system in California works on the party basis, or it is a non-partisan kind of thing?
In the law, in the Constitution, and in city charters, it's completely nonpartisan. However, as you might expect, in cities that have Democratic voters, they tend to elect Democratic elected officials. In cities that are Republican, they tend to elect Republican officials. That has less to do with the party affiliation and more to do with their philosophical agreement. But for example, in the city of Ventura, where I was city manager, we had 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, and 1 independent among the 7 members of the city council. And very, very seldom could you predict who would be voting on the basis of their party affiliation. It was really on the basis of a much different set of personalities and backgrounds and outlooks. So California is different in that local government is non-partisan.
Does this post of the city manager is a permanent post, or every mayor has the right to have his own city manager?
By law, we serve at the pleasure of the majority of the city council. So when the city council changes over, they may decide to keep the city manager, they may decide to bring on a new city manager. The same group may decide to change city managers because they're looking for someone with a different set of priorities. So it's not tied to elections. I could serve, some of my predecessors have served as long as 15 years, some have served as short as 3 years. By the way, in the last 30 years has been very stable here, so no city manager has been fired, but in other cities that happens fairly frequently.
So is it elected official, or it is nominated by the council or nominated by the mayor?
It varies. In Santa Monica and most California cities, it's the city council who selects the city manager and who is responsible for discharging the city manager if that becomes necessary. In a handful of cities in California, the mayor has the primary responsibility. Our state capital, Sacramento, which is neither a big city nor a small city, they're sort of in the middle. The mayor, who's directly elected, has the right to nominate the city manager, but it must be approved by the city council. So primarily city managers report to the elected legislators. And by the way, the elected legislators are mostly part-timers. They actually have real jobs. They go to work every day, and then at night, a couple times or 3 times, 4 times a month, they'll hold public meetings. But they do not work at City Hall. My mayor does not have an office in our City Hall building.
But in the big cities, mayor post is a full-time job.
It is a full-time job, and it is an executive role. The big difference is, in a big city, the police chief is hired by the mayor. In this city, I hire the police chief. The city council hires me, and I'm in charge of all of the departments.
So how many departments you oversee here?
Santa Monica is organized. We have 11 departments. So we have a library department, a fire department, a police department, what we call community and cultural services, which would be recreation, arts, our parks, all of that. So we have 11 different departments. I select all 11 department heads.
Education, health, those departments work under the city government, or they work under the state and the federal government?
Healthcare is handled by a level of government here in California we call counties, which oversee a collection of cities. And then education is handled by each separate district. So for example, here, 2 cities share the same school district rather than having one school district in each city. So it varies in California, but education is always separate from cities, and cities are always separate from health and welfare.
Where they report, with the 2 district educational board, they report to the state government, or they report to the federal government? Where from they get the funds?
They report to the voters, and they get their funds primarily from the state, but it's based upon a formula that's based upon how many students they have.
How much staff is working under your 11 departments?
So we're a city of just under 100,000 people. So that would be a medium-sized city in California. But we have a larger government than the typical city in California. That's because we're very financially well-resourced.
Democrats want a larger government.
Yes. We have 2,300 staff members. That's probably about twice what a normal government would have for a city of our size, because we provide a much larger range of services. We have an airport, we have a publicly owned pier, we actually have a cemetery, and we do all of the things that many cities contract out. For example, our garbage collection is done by the city. In a lot of other cities, private companies do that.
Well, how many people you have on the garbage cleaning of almost 100,000 people?
We have about 50 folks who are drivers who operate our garbage trucks. Then we have, of course, a small administrative staff. Then, of course, we have to have folks who repair the trucks and keep them and clean them and keep them in good order. So there's around 80 folks all told, because here the responsibilities go beyond collecting the garbage. We are able to either recycle or compost about 80% of the waste. So very little of it now goes to be buried in a landfill. Most of it is either sold as scrap metal, scrap paper, or is composted if it's compostable, if it's organic waste. So we waste. So that's a higher level of administration than just collecting the garbage.
Actually, those are the 54% or 50% who take the garbage every day.
Yes.
Rest of the folks are for their support.
Yes.
Okay. My last question. What are the challenges for you being the city manager of this beautiful city?
Yes. Well, I would say there are three challenges. When I arrived here almost 3 years ago, I told the city council, only half joking, that their problem was that they had 15 top 3 priorities, right? So they want to do a lot of things. This is a city that wants to help make a contribution to ending global warming. We want to end homelessness. We want to ameliorate poverty. So we want to do a lot of things in our city. So getting the city council to focus on a few things and do them well is a challenge. The second challenge is we have 93,000 opinions about what the most important thing is for our government to do. And so rebuilding that communication with our citizens, that's a huge challenge. We have a very highly educated population. It's not particularly affluent. About 70% of our people do not own their own homes, they're renters, but they often have college degrees or even advanced degrees. So they're very interested in what happens here at City Hall. So a challenge is having the dialogue with them about changing services. And the last thing is, our government in America was designed for the 20th century, the early part of the 20th century. And now with the 21st century, with technology changing the newspaper business, the travel business, the car business, it's going to change government as well. And so we have to adjust and become more nimble, more entrepreneurial, less rigid, less bureaucracy, and more responsiveness. That's a huge challenge, but this is a great place to tackle those challenges because I have a city council that really wants to make positive change for the community.
How many city council members does Santa Monica have?
We have 7. They're elected at large. The mayor is actually chosen from among the council members. He or she is not elected directly by the people. In some cities that's different, but there are 7 of them, and they're highly engaged, but again, they're not professional politicians. They do this essentially as volunteers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ecole. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very
much.
My
pleasure.
Thank you, sir. इन वक्त असां मौजूद आहियूं अमरीकी रियासत कैलिफोर्निया जे शहर सांता मोनिका में, जिते जो मेयर टेड विंटर साहब असां गॾु न अचो त उन सां गुफ़्तगू कयूं. Welcome, Mr. Ted Winter, and my show, and thank you very much for your giving me time for this discussion. Actually, I wanted to know about the functions of the city government here in Santa Monica.
Well, we have multiple functions. Obviously, we're responsible for public safety, so we have a police and fire department. We make decisions governing land use. I mean, what sort of buildings you can build, what type of uses they are, what kind of square footage they can be, what height they can go to, etc. We're very involved with our school district and helping to fund some of the kindergarten through 12th grade learning experience in our public schools. We are very involved in environmental issues. So it pretty much runs the gamut of everything that our citizens care about that local government can serve their basic needs. Libraries, picking up the trash, those sort of things, making sure the streets work.
Most of the time, the mayors are elected by the common people.
Yes.
Does it works here or it is different?
No, here in Santa Monica, we have 7 city council member seats elected at large. So the entire Santa Monica population votes for those 7 city council members. In presidential election years, 4 of those seats are voted on, and then in gubernatorial election years, the other 3 are voted on. And then every 2 years after those elections, the city council then elects the mayor for the next 2 years. So I was re-elected as a city council member in 2016, and then after that, I was elected mayor for the next 2 years.
And what is the role of a city council?
The role of the city council is basically the policy-making body for the city government. We are responsible for just 3 staff people. We can hire and fire the city manager, the city attorney, and the city clerk, and then all the other over 2,000 employees in the city report to those 3 department heads. We set policy. We are the ones who say, these are the laws we want to enact, these are the land use standards we want to have in place, these are the environmental policies we want you to pursue, and we give that direction to our 3 employees.
These hiring, firing powers are with the city council or with the mayor?
They're with the city council.
Not with the mayor?
No, no.
Then what is the role of a mayor?
The mayor's primary function is to serve as sort of the figurehead for the entire city council. For instance, to do interviews like this, to go to ribbon cuttings for new event, openings of new businesses, to go give speeches to the Chamber of Commerce, to go to conferences, to interact with other elected officials around the region. We just had a meeting of all 88 mayors of the 88 cities in Los Angeles County last week, so I attended that. And then the other primary function is to run the meetings. When we have 7 people up on the dais, someone has to chair the meetings, help set the agendas, say this is what we're going to deal with the upcoming Tuesday for our meeting. So it's running the meetings.
It is a city of more than 90,000 people.
Correct.
90,000 people. What is the budget of this city?
We do a 2-year budget cycle. So over 2 years, our expenditures are just about $1.1 billion.
Where from you get this money?
Where do we get this from?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it doesn't fall from the sky. That would be
Okay.
nice. So we have a diverse economy here with a lot of different tax bases. So we get property taxes. People pay property taxes to the County of Los Angeles, and for every dollar they pay in property taxes to the County of Los Angeles, we get back about 16, 17 cents on that dollar.
Okay.
We have substantial revenue from a bed tax on hotel rooms. Anytime you stay in a hotel in Santa Monica, there's a 14% charge on the cost of that hotel room daily, and we get a lot of money from that because we have a lot of tourists that come in.
That whole comes to you?
Yes, that all
14%.
comes. 14% bed tax comes directly to the city. We have sales tax. We get a percentage of sales tax. So
How much sales tax?
so about 1.5% of the sales tax goes to us now, of the 10.5% that was currently imposed on anything you buy in Santa Monica. And then we have utility users tax. You pay a tax on your electric bill, your gas bill, your water bill, et cetera, that comes to the city. And then we have business license fees. Every business that's here has to pay an annual fee based on their gross receipts. So we have a bunch of different sources of revenue.
Does the federal government and the state government pay funds to the city of Monica?
Yeah, we first of all have sort of recurring annual grants that we get from the federal government and the state, and then there's a lot of one-time grants for specific projects. You know, you can go to the state and say, we want to do a project to clean the water that goes into the Santa Monica Bay, for instance, and they might assist with a grant for that, or the county metro, their transportation division might give us a grant for pedestrian improvements, or they actually gave us a grant for those bike share system you have over there. So there's other monies that come in through the federal government, the state government, and the county government.
You as a mayor, what are your priorities for the city of Santa Monica?
Well, the city council a couple of years ago adopted what it felt was 5 strategic priorities are for the city, and those would be addressing homelessness, which has become a real crisis in LA County, keeping a diverse and inclusive community in the face of gentrification pressures, making sure that everybody in our city has the opportunity to learn and thrive, dealing with the Santa Monica airport and trying to close that down and turn that into a park, and mobility, trying to deal with giving people the option to get around our city without getting in heavily congested streets in their own private automobiles. My personal priority, I think right now, given that it's become such a horrible situation to see people living on the streets here, I think my number one priority is to put a lot of emphasis on trying to house some of our homeless people, get them the mental health services, the substance abuse services they need, and get them off the streets.
What are the strategies you have planned to achieve those goals?
Well, we invested some extra funds last fall when we had a little bit of a budget surplus into hiring additional outreach people via the County of Los Angeles to go out into our parks and other public spaces and engage homeless individuals and try to connect them to the services that will get them into housing and off the streets. we're just making it very clear to the city manager who runs the city that this is a really important task for us. And he interacts with the Human Services Division, the police department, etc. We've hired a new senior advisor on homelessness to help coordinate with all the other agencies around the county and the state, so that, you know, we're not doing one thing where somebody else is doing something else. We're trying to work together on those things. So that's how we go about making that a priority.
Thank you very much, Mr.
You're welcome, and thank you for visiting us.
Thank you very much.
All right.
So nice of you.
Bye.